All right, so I'm just going to give a status update on the refactoring I'm doing of the StaffTool site that I showed you guys before for church management. I think last time I was here and that's weird. I showed you guys kind of like the prototype version I had before, where I had most of the functionality there, but I wanted to go back and kind of redo the whole innards with all the latest Rails stuff, the REST and all that type of stuff. So I kept the same interface basically and just started over on the inside. And the first part that I started on was basically the people part, because the whole thing is basically focused on managing people and all the groups that they're part of and all the events that they're going to be going to, things like that. So what I wanted to focus on at first was a really easy way to get people in and out of the system, and to be able to do manipulations on multiple records at once, put them in different groups or delete a bunch or things like that. So the solution I wanted to do was support vCards and HCards. HCards are a microformat that you basically just mark up the HTML with a lot of classes and stuff that kind of map to the vCard standards. So you'll have things like FN for full name, things like that. So you just put a lot of classes and spans and all that type of thing to make everything in per record really semantic and map as much as you can to a vCard. And then that way there's things like there's a plugin for Firefox. It's called Tails, that scans an HTML page, looks for a vCard class, and then parses everything within that div and looks for all the different elements for vCard and puts it together as an actual vCard file. So it makes it so you can, people can scrape your page and pull actual pieces that make sense out of it. And there's even talk of people making that their actual API, and their site is just using everything as some sort of micro format, and things can just pull it out. And then I also wanted to support actual vCards like you have in Mac's address book or something like that, where you can drag some things out of your address book and it makes a VCF file, and you can parse that out and import it. So I used the vpim library for my vCard parsing. I wanted to be able to support single person and multiple person vCard files, so you can have one file that has as many people in it as you want. I also wanted to have a way of rolling back imports, because sometimes they get screwed up, and I remember I was trying some web app and I imported a vCard file and it made a bunch of duplicates and stuff, and I was stuck, and there was 400 items in there that I had to try to go back and delete manually, and I basically just had to email the company and see if they could just do it for me, because there was no way I could do it. And then I also wanted to take the embedded photos in the vCard files and import them into the system, where in the database each person has a photo that is using Access Attachment plugin. So I wanted to get the embedded, it's like base 64 text string out of the vCard file and turn it into an actual JPEG or something like that, and attach it to the records. So, like I said, I used vpim. Vpim's pretty cool. It helps you import and export both vCards and iCal files. So the next step I'm going to be working on is the calendar part, where we can export ICS files and import ICS files from iCal, things like that. And it goes both ways. It encodes and decodes for you. So in order to do the rolling back, I actually, I guess I tried to make it as RESTful as possible. So I made a people imports model, and so there's a people imports controller, and what that does is it actually does the decoding of the card, creates all the people, and then the people imports model actually keeps track of all the records that were created during that import. And then I'm also using the response to parent plugin, which lets you do, it's kind of like Ajax uploads, where it submits the form to like an 1 pixel iframe, and then once it's done with that, it sends the JavaScript callback so you can do RJS on the rest of the page. So it's pretty much like an Ajax upload, but it's just doing some tricky stuff in the background. So Yeah, that's the thing. So this is where, in the person model, I made a from vcard method, and I basically just mapped everything that vpim gives you from parsing a vcard file, and mapped it to the database, the fields in the model. And each person can have multiple telephone numbers, multiple emails, and multiple like street addresses. So it sets all the stuff up that's just single items, like the given name, family name, all that stuff, and then it loops through all the different phones and emails and addresses, and what it's doing is it's actually just it's building everything. So it's not actually saving everything. It's just building it all together, and then in the controller it saves the person, and it saves all that stuff that's been built on it, and it raises an error if anything in there is invalid. So each, phones, emails, and addresses are all their own model too, so they all have validations on them. And then to get the images out, I had to figure out a way to turn the embedded base64 text string into an image that Axe's attachment could understand and manipulate as like a normal image. So I made a vcard photo method that basically makes a temp file and puts the string into the temp file, closes it, and then I have a temp uploaded file method that takes that temp file and turns it into the same kind of input that a form would give. So I actually took a class from, I think, the fixture file upload, and for testing you can test uploads that way, and what it does is it goes through and makes another temp file and puts the original file name and content type attributes on it and stuff like that, because that's what Axe's attachment needs to do all its manipulation and stuff like that. So and then this is the photo model, and Axe's attachment by default, if you give it dimensions, it just resizes it, but it doesn't crop it. So I had to go in and run some image magic stuff on there to crop it to a size and make different thumbnail sizes instead of just resizing it and making them out of proportion. And then for the encoding, basically just in the show model, I'm supporting right now XML, JavaScript just shows them in a sheet, and then if they ask for .vcf, it sends a vcard file that's created from vpim. And this is the encoding, so it's just basically the opposite of the other thing. It takes all the information from the record and goes back and creates the vpim vcard objects for each address and email and phone number and all that type of stuff, and puts the photo back in as a base64 string. So that's it for that. So I'll go ahead and show you what I have so far on it. That's a little small. Okay, so this is just a few people that are already in the address book for this church. If I want to get rid of a couple, you can highlight a couple, do delete selected, make sure you want to get rid of them. Let me make sure my server's running here. Hold on. Okay. Okay, so that gets rid of those guys and tells you who's been deleted. If you want to import people, you can. I have a vCard here that has, I think, like 40 people from a high school group at my church. So you do just create import. It does its thing. And then it shows you all the people that it brought in. If the screen was bigger, it has an option for canceling the import. I'm not sure what I'm going to do here because it's off the screen now. But if you say you don't want to keep the import, it just goes back and deletes everybody that was just brought in. So let's see. Yeah. And then the other part I wanted to do was if I wanted to say I wanted to add everybody to the youth ministry. Go through, and then it just added everybody to those groups. So now if you look at her card, she's in the youth ministry. So, and then finally, like I was saying, I wanted to make everything able to get the V card out as well. So you can click on this, downloads the V card, and adds it to address book. So you can get your stuff out real easily. So that's it.
That concludes this episode of the SD.RB podcast. See you next time.